Let's talk some Pittsburgh Steelers on Proline TV and the Ourlads Football Network. I'm your host, Greg DePalma, and that means Alex Kozora of Steelers Depot joins us once again. How's it going, Alex?
Hey, Greg, doing well. Appreciate the invite.
As always. So, Alex, doing some research on the Steelers this offseason and what they're going to be up against. This seems like this is going to be one, especially, look, I mean, you could easily say, well, of course, you move on from Mike Tomlin when the organization, has a coach every 50 years. That's a significant enough kind of a transition. But really, it does look like it's more than Mike Tomlin. It looks like this could be a major transitional offseason for the franchise with the amount of picks they have, the cap space they have, the free agents that are out there on the team that they have to do big decisions to make, a lot of older players. Is that getting the fans antsy or excited?
I think in excitement, there was certainly a level of stagnation and frustration with not just Mike Tomlin, but the results of the Mike Tomlin-led Steelers the last decade. 0 playoff wins, a team that could conceivably win 9 or 10 games, no matter what the roster looked like, no matter the path of the quarterback, no matter what in-season injuries and occurrences happened, but couldn't get over that hump. So I think there's, some renewed optimism. Now, some weren't excited about, Mike McCarthy being added, and is that going to be the thing to get you over the top? But I think just a refresh in terms of your coaching staff, your scheme, philosophy. McCarthy can be a pretty innovative guy as well. So you're right. It's a big change. It's in terms of the way Pittsburgh's done business. We'll see how much changes. I'm sure some will. It certainly is a brand new chapter for this team.
Do you think that is the consensus one way or another when it comes to making big changes? And even though the fan base is starving for a playoff win, the fact is there are a lot of fan bases out there that do understand that you have to be patient. And sometimes it's better to take one step back to take 2 to 3 steps forward. So do you think the fans are willing to do that? Or is it all about, hey, we got to win another Super Bowl. We got to win a playoff game. And that's the most important thing. So which way does the fan base lie mostly?
I mean, it's always split. There's certainly a group that says tank for a year, get a high draft pick, invest in a quarterback, kind of do the Patriots model. But tanking is easy to say and hard to do. I look at the New York Jets, and granted, they've been a franchise starving for a long time, but they thought, okay, go through a tough year under Aaron Glenn, reset, come out the other side. And obviously it was a really tough year. And how close is that light at the end of the tunnel? You never know exactly how close you are. So I think with McCarthy, just the concern was, would it be more of the same? Himself as a head coach has not won a playoff game since 2017. And so there has one playoff win over that span, I should say. So that's kind of the concern. Is there too many similarities, even though McCarthy and Tomlin stylistically and background and personality are different? But all you can do is just find that quarterback, and McCarthy can find that guy, no matter if that comes through the draft or some other avenue, some sort of Sam Darnold 2.0. That's going to be the thing that really propels this franchise forward.
Okay. 12 picks, 3, I believe, in round 3, and maybe more with compensation. So that's an awful lot of draft capital, move up, or to make moves even for next year's draft class, which, again, there'll be more top-heavy quarterbacks, no question about it, in next year's draft compared to this one. But there's still some decent quarterbacks that are going to be available once you get past maybe even the first round. I have no idea yet. I haven't heard anything that Nussmeier has moved back into the first round yet or not. But if he doesn't, I still think there's, including Nussmeier, I still think there's about 3 or 4 guys you can look to after the first round. And but overall, what's the legacy? What's the history of the Steelers when they've had this much draft capital? What's your guess on how you think they're going to handle not just the draft, but the amount of money that that they have? Because they're top 10 right now in being able to spend in free agency. So it looks like they're going to be able to go out and get a couple of big time players if they can afford, if they want to go down that route. So what direction do you see them heading in the draft and in free agency?
Well, in terms of the historical precedents, Pittsburgh in the modern era, since the draft became the 7-round version it is today, have never had 12 picks in a draft before. Now, I don't think they're going to actually finish April's draft with 12. There's going to be a trade there. They probably go in that 9 or 10 range, but that's still going to be heavy even by Pittsburgh standards. Usually their classes are 6 and 7. They have not been a trade-heavy team. Definitely weren't under Kevin Colbert. A little more aggression under Omar Khan, but not anything radical. This team also just needs a youth infusion. They were the second oldest roster last year, and obviously a lot of older names and even guys that may be returning, a Cam Hayward, a TJ Watt, Jalen Ramsey. We'll see who is there in 26. Still makes you one of the oldest rosters in Frutal and Slip. Aaron Rodgers' return also would continue to increase that age of it all. So I think part of the calculation for all the draft picks this year, which came from a lot of compensatory selections for the free agents they lost last offseason, was to really add some youth to this roster that is desperately needed to kind of counterbalance how old this roster has become. So where will that go? Could be a variety of ways. Will they be spendy in free agency? To a degree, probably not as aggressive as last year in terms of some of the trades, the big money contract they gave to DK Metcalf. But certainly, as you pointed out, there is flexibility for this team to add 2 or 3 quality starters in free agency.
All right, we'll go over those needs in a little bit. First of all, let's take a look at some of those free agents. So let's start, first of all, with I guess we can probably let's start with the offense. So let's just go right to it with Aaron Rodgers. Why don't we? And when McCarthy was when the announcement came that McCarthy was the guy, did the fans in Pittsburgh have the general consensus reaction that everyone else did? Was, oh, Aaron Rodgers, Mike McCarthy, it's just gonna happen? Is that too easy?
That was the consensus, still is the consensus. No one knows exactly what Rodgers will do or when he'll decide upon that. The reporting and the pundits have certainly speculated and leaned towards that, not just because of McCarthy, although obviously that's a huge connection, but a lot of the McCarthy's coaches he brought over. James Campen, the offensive line coach, he's really good friends with Aaron Rodgers. They go way back. They spent their entirety together in Green Bay. Essentially, they're really, close friends. And so there's a connection there. Frank Signetti Jr., Ryan Angelico, both on that Packers staff working with Aaron Rodgers during parts of his Green Bay tenure. So there's a lot of connections that'll make that transition more seamless to jump back into Pittsburgh. Now, is it a guarantee that Rodgers will do it? Is it a foregone conclusion? I don't want to say that. Rodgers is unpredictable. And after the playoff loss last year, the thought was, even before we knew that Mike Tomlin was stepping down and resigning, that Rodgers was probably going to be done. In fact, during that wild card loss, there was a report that said during a production meeting a couple weeks earlier, I think week 15 against Miami, Rodgers talked to, I think it was Lisa Salters, and basically said, I think this is the end for me. And so if he wasn't going to return, even if Tomlin came back, there's no guarantee he's going to come back just because McCarthy's the head coach. Rodgers is defined by more than just football and marches to his own beat. And just because McCarthy's there doesn't mean that Rodgers will return. Now, if they had hired Chris Shula or Anthony Weaver, then Rodgers is not coming back to learn a whole new system and scheme. So the door is opened up because of McCarthy, but it is not a guarantee that Rodgers returns.
What's your gut tell you? I know how hard it is because you're trying to figure out Aaron Rodgers, but what does your gut tell you?
Yes, he will. I don't know when that'll happen. Ideally before free agency, so this team has some sort of, at least in terms of a verbal agreement of, hey, I'm going to be back. I don't want to do OTAs, but I'll sign in June like last year. Just his body held up. He had fun. He was energized in Pittsburgh. He really enjoyed his time with the Steelers. Now there's a new coaching staff, but it is so familiar to him that it makes sense for him to come back. So my guess is yes, but again, I'm not going to sit there and say this is ironclad.
And of course, like you said, it has to be done before free agency because there are some veteran quarterbacks out there that are available. You can make a few trades as well, and they've got to know. Okay, so let's take a look at the rest of the offense. And it looks like really there's only a couple of guys that stick out for me. You've got Ciamalo and Gainwell. Would that be the case, or are there more guys on offense that the Steelers will want to try to bring back?
Those are the two big names. We could also mention Calvin Austin as a pending free agent in terms of notable names who will be watching to see if they return or not. I think they'll certainly want Kenneth Gainwell back, the team MVP of 2025. And if Rodgers returns, all the more reason to bring Gainwell back because Rodgers got the ball out quicker than any other quarterback last year, about 2.5 seconds. And Gainwell certainly was a beneficiary of that 73 receptions, first Steelers running back to lead the team in receptions since 1994, so highly active in the passing game. He'd also pass protected, ran the ball, returned kicks, ran down kicks, a multi-hat kind of a guy. Certainly going to be more expensive to sign him than the cheap one-year contract they got last offseason, probably a multi-year deal worth $5 to $7 million per year, but certainly would like to have Gainwell back. Malu, I think, is going to walk and go elsewhere. He's 32. He had a really good year in 2025, one of his better seasons, but he's had a bunch of soft tissue injuries, bunch of pec injuries, battled through that. And just because of that guard market, the O-line tax to pay to retain these guys, Pittsburgh signed Sayamalu 3 years ago, Greg, for 3 years, $24 million. Now it's going to probably cost 10, 12, 14 million per year to bring him back. Are you going to pay more to bring back a guy who's now 3 years older and with the injury history?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So there's value in the continuity. He can still play. I just don't think he returns. I think Austin goes as well. You probably want to refresh in that receiver room.
Okay, so really, if you were targeting one guy on offense, and there's others, you got Miller, Valdez-Scantling, and all the players here in green, you can see here on the Ourlads depth chart. But besides Gainwell, then, are there any other players that you think really matter as far as for the Steelers to try to re-sign?
I think Gainwell's top of the list. I mean, they could bring back Sayamalu, wouldn't be the worst decision. Just I don't know if the math really kind of maths there. Connor Hayward, we'll see how McCarthy feels about him. That H-back, not really a true tight end. Could he have a Hunter Lipke kind of role in Pittsburgh the way that Lipke did in Dallas? But obviously that's not going to be a major player. So yeah, the free agent pool is not incredibly deep in terms of the offensive names. It's Sayamalu, Gainwell, of course, Aaron Rodgers.
Let's go to the defensive side and taking a look here. There are a couple of notables. We've got Pierre at corner and Clark at safety. Those are the ones that stick out. Who are the priorities for the Steelers on defense?
It's hard to say priority just because how does this new coaching staff feel? And often you get that roster purge whenever new coaches come in. And defensive coordinator Patrick Graham is a good hire, but he's a really adaptable DC. He's run basically every scheme possible. He's kind of a more man coverage blitz guy at his core, but he's done it all. And so how will they see this roster, who stays, who goes? They're going to keep the base 3-4 structure to it. McCarthy confirmed that, which I think is a good thing, even though sub-package rules today. I think the position group to look at in terms of what's going to be interesting is cornerback. James Pierre had a career year in 2025. The light finally came on for him. He played well in man coverage, played well in relief. They signed Darius Slay. He didn't work out. Door open for Pierre, and Slay was released because Pierre was playing so well. Also, Sante Samuel Jr., a late season add to the practice squad, had that spinal surgery in April, got cleared. He played some decent ball for Pittsburgh late in the year, had that pick against Miami. And he'll probably have a little bit of a market once to kind of see what's out there for him. So who's going to be the starting corner opposite of Joey Porter Jr., who really came into his own last year? Will it be Pierre? Will it be Samuel? Will they go sign a free agent, draft somebody? Really kind of a big question there.
Okay. And are there any other players on defense, all these free agents you see here, anyone that you think is important for them to bring back?
Nobody to an extreme level in terms of they're going to start or be expected to play significant snaps. I mean, there are names you could talk about, the safeties. You mentioned Clark and Kyle Duggar, but with Deshaun Elliott coming back, then that's going to be your strong safety. The question, I think, is less about the free agents, but who might get cut. And I don't know if I'm leading into a next topic, but Patrick Queen, Jalen Ramsey are going to be names to watch. Are they going to stay or go?
Yeah. Yeah, talk about that, because I was looking over there and we're talking, what is it, 19 million of savings for Ramsey and 13 for Queen?
Yeah, thereabouts. And so big money to talk about. But if you're going to cut those guys, who's going to be the replacement there? So those will be the decisions made by March. They both have March roster bonuses, I think a couple days into the new league year. And so we'll get some finality in terms of how this new coaching staff feels about Patrick Queen, Jalen Ramsey. Also, just other cuts to mention. Malik Harrison, could he be on the block? And then offensively, to go back to that, Johnny Smith's going to be as good as gone offensively. Yeah,
there's definitely seem like the top four to keep an eye on. Well, what do you think? What do you think about Ramsey and Queen, considering the talent that they have? Because Ramsey has had an incredible career. He is getting older. Play has slipped, as every player's game will slip as they get older. So considering they do have some money, it's not like they're cash stricken. But what do you think about Ramsey and Queen? Do you think it'd just be better off to move on, use that money elsewhere?
I would keep both. And I think Queen in reality is going to stay. I don't know if there's enough depth there. I think his play was up and down last year, but did show improvement from his first year in 24 to warrant him playing out this contract and seeing it through. Ramsey, you could certainly twist my arm to cut him. Is he to a dollar amount worth all that money as a safety now? Probably not. But what is going to be the net cost if you cut him? Do you go sign somebody else? What's the cost of capital if you draft his replacement? Are they going to be ready? Obviously he was brought in last year under Mike Tomlin to be this kind of lockdown corner to combat T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. That was sort of the answer to that. That plan has gone out the window. But he made that mid-season transition to safety. So he's never really gotten a chance to actually learn the position. I know he played it at Florida State. He's got a bit of a background there. He's a vet, but to really have a whole offseason to get and hone your craft, I think will make him a better player at safety in 2026 should he come back, even though he'll be another year older. And his safety tape last year in Pittsburgh was fine. It was acceptable, I think, for making that move on the fly. So I would keep it the same. I'd certainly be drafting, looking for his replacement for 27, but I would keep Ramsey for the short term.
Who is the starting nickel now?
Well, Ramsey floated to both last year. That was kind of his initial position, was kind of playing some nickel and then base safety and then playing outside corner in situational matchup stuff. But probably right now, Brandon Echols, who signed a 2-year deal last year, had a strong year and played the nickel whenever Ramsey made that move to safety.
Okay. All right. So before you move on, anything going on? How did the special teams do overall?
Bos was great. I mean, he had a little of issues down the stretch, but he's still Chris Boswell. He's going to get an extension this summer that should make him the highest paid kicker in football. He's patiently been waiting. No deal happened last year, so he should get it this offseason. Christian Kuntz had a tough year. We'll see what happens there. And Waitman as a punter is pretty inconsistent. Probably would look for an upgrade there. And then return game, too. Got to mention return game. Pittsburgh's kick return unit has been miserable under that dynamic kickoff model brought in 2 years ago. They finished 32nd in kick return average in 24. They were 28th in 25. Their last kick return touchdown came in 2017 by a then rookie Juju Smith-Schuster. So it's been a minute. And Pittsburgh had their starting running backs doing kick returns last year. Caleb Johnson got that work early on, had that big flub against Seattle, never to be seen again on the kick return teams. Austin was your punt returner. He's a pending free agent. So certainly would like that. I think McCarthy will appreciate that too. He had Kevontae Turpin in Dallas, who is a really dynamic and still is a dynamic kick returner and punt returner. So I think to get your own Turpin in Pittsburgh would do that unit really some good.
Okay. All right. Now, before we go into the needs overall, let's start first of all on offense. Are there any young players, not necessarily the rookie class of last year, but, maybe the rookie class of the years prior, or it could just be any other young player on the roster on the offense that is ready to take another step that maybe fans outside of Pittsburgh don't understand? They haven't followed the team enough, but hey, these are guys to keep an eye on. Maybe this is their year to take a much bigger step.
Well, you look at the offensive line, and you really were excited about how that young group came to its own. Zach Frazier, McCormick, Fautani. You feel really comfortable about center to right side, left side, a little more questions there. But Dylan Cook played well when Broderick Jones went down late last season with a neck injury. He's got to prove it to the new coaching staff and James Campen and Mike McCarthy. But Dylan Cook, bided his time, former college quarterback, practice squatter, got hurt a couple of years ago, but stuck around enough and really took advantage of his opportunity. He was really solid in pass protection. Look at Spencer Anderson, the left guard, who filled in for Malu when he was hurt last year, had that role as that sixth offensive lineman in those jumbo packages that were so effective for Pittsburgh, to the point whenever Anderson was a starting left guard, they still used him as that sixth offensive lineman and would put an Andres Pete and kind of shuffle things around because they liked Anderson in that spot so much. So there's certainly a chance for him to start at left guard if Malu leaves, but competition will be brought in. And then, of course, the elephant in the room, so to speak, Will Howard at quarterback, #1 fan favorite in Pittsburgh right now, probably better than his 6th-round draft pick tag would advertise. Got hurt last year in training camp, broke his hand, missed the entire preseason, didn't take a snap. His next snap in a stadium in the NFL will be his first, but a lot of buzz about what he could potentially offer. And Mike McCarthy has sung his praises as that so-called quarterback whisperer.
All right. Defense. So same question.
Yeah, look at the defensive line, and you got some good play from Harmon last year when he was healthy. Big difference in production and output in a positive way against the run when Harmon played versus when he did not. Y.A. Black, I thought, had a nice rookie season, played mostly defensive end, played some nose tackle later in the year. So those guys, year 2, can they offer more pass rush production? That's going to be key. Big year 3 for Peyton Wilson. He has not taken the step forward I thought he would. I was really high on Peyton Wilson for 25. Thought he would break out. Never happened. Was not trusted to play against the run. Was left out of those base packages after getting benched in that role early in the season. Look at Jack Sawyer. Had a good rookie year. He'll continue to rotate in. Nick Herbig. What's going to be the future of him? Extension could be tough because you're paying Highsmith and Watt so much money, but Herbig certainly worthy. And so those are some names to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Do you think that, is it possible that because of what you just said with Herbig, any chance at all that the Steelers trade him because they know they're not going to be able to sign him to an extension?
No, I don't think that. I think it's just too valuable. It's such an important position. I think you make that decision after next year, where do you want to re-sign Herbig to that big money contract? And then do you trade and move off of a TJ Watt or an Alex Highsmith? I think you want to go into this year with all those guys, because there's been some injury issues too with really all of them, Watt and
Yeah.
Highsmith and Herbig. You lose one of those guys, your depth really gets tested, even though Sawyer did play well last year. So it's tough to do the extension with Herbig now, just because you're not going to justify the snaps if you're going to pay this guy this, I don't know, 18 million per year
Sure.
type of contract. So I think you let it ride, let this thing play out, and enter next offseason trying to answer that big question.
How has Keanu Benton come around?
25 was a breakout year. He had, I think, 2 sacks his first 2 years combined, and then had 5 last year. So the pass rush really opened up. He became a more varied pass rusher. He still loves that club over move. It's really potent move, but he was more varied. He would go to his left more because he always used to rush to his right. He offered a bowl a little bit more. The run defense was shaky. And the question really is, does he fit? Is that nose tackle? He is certainly more that new age athletic pass rushing who plays in sub, not just your base 3-4 guy, which is required when you're playing sub 70% of the time. But can he be more steady against the run is going to be the question. Can he fit in this scheme under Patrick Graham's going to be the thought. But there certainly were some steps forward last year. He's another extension candidate. I think it's less likely he gets it compared to, say, Joey Porter Jr. I think it's going to be a lock to get extended this offseason. But if he can find that consistency and anchor against the run, that'll really take his game to the next level.
Okay. Let's now talk about the team needs. So overall, number one, is there a positional need that is definitely, without a doubt, the number one need for the team? Or is it about 2 to 3 different positions could all be the number one need?
Well, I feel like I talk to you each year, Greg, and we say quarterback aside, because every quarterback's number one. There's still no long-term answer.
Yeah.
Still not sure who that's going to be. Just kind of putting that aside for a second, because it probably won't get resolved in ideal fashion in 26, given the lack of options. But to answer your question more directly, wide receiver is certainly a big need. Under Mike McCarthy, you're not going to have the 12 personnel, 13 personnel tight end heaviness that you had under Arthur Smith. You got one receiver right now in DK Metcalf, and not much else. Roman Wilson didn't take a step back, but did not take the step forward that you hoped for last year. A young guy not meshing well with Aaron Rodgers by all appearances. Austin, a pending free agent. So you're adding receiver in free agency. You're going to add one in the draft. I mean, you're going to really kind of transform that room. That's kind of the big need. And then cornerback could be a big need too. If they don't re-sign James Pierre, if they cut Jalen Ramsey, then free safety becomes an immediate need as well.
Okay. And what about the rest of the needs? Any other, once you start getting to the rest of the roster?
Yeah, there's still certainly plenty of areas to discuss, whether you talk about adding competition at left guard. Should Isaac Seumalo walk? You talk about defensive line. Not even a guarantee Cam Hayward's going to return. He's still deciding his future. I think he'll be back, but it's certainly if he retires, then you have a massive hole there. And even if he returns, odds are 26 is his last season. So what's going to be the future replacing him? Harmon is one piece of that, but it's not just, can't just be Harmon. Obviously, you're going to be starting a defensive lineman, 2 defensive ends. So you're going to be looking towards that as well, because Black may not reach that height of being a starter. Harmon, I think, certainly can be a really good player, but you got to add more. It's going to be probably a multi-man job to officially replace Cam Hayward whenever he hangs up his cleats.
Yeah, that's the one thing I noticed about the roster is that there is a lot of star power here. There's a lot of really good players, but then you also look into just, again, as we mentioned at the very beginning, there's also a lot of age. And there's a lot of the young players that have yet to really, or at least the last several drafts, that just have not worked out enough, which is maybe why they're in this stagnant position. So, and it's unfortunate because it does, especially last year's draft, the last couple of drafts, there's talent. Mm-hmm. I've agreed. You mentioned Peyton Wilson. I agree with some of these picks and some of the players. So, maybe it's maybe the new coaching staff could get more out of these guys too. I mean, that's something that it's part of the problem when you have a stagnant coaching staff. It's not just about wins and losses. Sometimes it's about development.
Absolutely. And with potentially a dozen picks, but we'll just call it 10 draft picks to develop those guys, could be a crucial year. Yeah, they've had some good draft picks. They've really fixed the offensive line in a lot of ways. That was a big point of emphasis under Omar Khan, which I think was neglected in the last years of Kevin Colbert. So that has been mission critical and certainly creates a good foundation going forward. But there's more work to do for an offense that hasn't been top 10 in scoring in, I think, since 2020, maybe, and hasn't been top 5 since 2018. So that is the name of the game. And yeah, there's star power, but it is getting to that point of like seeing your favorite enter 80s hair metal band here still playing today, where you're like, yeah, they're star power, but they're not exactly as good as they once were, kind of a deal. And so you're kind of getting to that point with Jalen Ramsey and potentially TJ Watt. Cam Hayward's still running strong, but again, entering the final year probably of his career should he come back. So you're in this purgatory Pittsburgh has been in, and obviously quarterback is a big reason for that. It's going to be hard to really get that jet fuel forward until you find that franchise guy that can truly compete. So there are some pieces in place, but it just hasn't meshed together well enough to really power forward.
Do you think that when you're looking at the quarterback position, because you mentioned Howard, so which was really a great, as we both talked about last year, just such a great deal to get him where they were able to, and now maybe even get him in there and get him in there early. When they're looking at the quarterback position in the draft, do you think because of Howard that at least in this year's draft, they're not going to be, even though they have a lot of picks, that you would guess that they wouldn't target one early in the draft, that maybe third, fourth round, the earliest, or no, they don't really know what they have in Howard. So if they can get another guy as early as the second round, they're going to do it.
Yeah, it'll be telling. I mean, if you hypothetically loved a Ty Simpson in the first round and you viewed him as your franchise guy, I don't think Will Howard's presence should mean you pass up on a Ty Simpson. Now, I don't know how they're going to feel about him. They probably won't end up taking him as the guy, but you never know. So if it's not first round, then do you kind of sit in that third round sweet spot? Pittsburgh has 3 third rounders, as you mentioned earlier. Kind of feels like the spot to take somebody, maybe a Garrett Nussmeier, who has connections loosely to Mike McCarthy. His father, Doug Nussmeier, coached with Mike McCarthy in Dallas, and Doug played in the NFL himself. So there's nice kind of some easy connections and dots to connect there. But it could be any of these quarterbacks. But of course, if Rodgers comes back, you have Rudolph Howard, then a draft pick. Normally only carry 3 quarterbacks. Who's odd man out? Is that Mason Rudolph? How's that all going to shake out? But I think, McCarthy comes from that Packers school of thought of drafting for quarterbacks and taking one pretty often to kind of have somebody in the hopper. So I think a quarterback is likely to give yourself some options. And, if Howard had played last year, even in the preseason, to give you some semblance of what he could look like, you might feel a little more comfortable. But this guy had 93 reps in training camp last year, then got hurt, and then was basically done for the year. He came back midseason, running scout team, but not a whole lot there. So it's just a lost rookie year that was really unfortunate. Heck, if Pittsburgh had wrapped up the division by week 17 and not been upset by Cleveland, they probably would have played Will Howard in that regular season finale because they had nothing to play for. The 4th seed AFC North would have been locked up, and that went out the window because they lost to Cleveland. So just so many missed chances last year for Howard.
Yeah, boy, I think Nussmeier is one of those quarterbacks that is all going to depend, like it happens most of the time. It's going to depend on where he goes, who he's coached by. I could see if Nussmeier is coached by McCarthy, based on that relationship you mentioned too. I think it's going to be a nice spot for him. I think he's a talented kid. I just think he needs the right coaching staff and the right team around him. So I think the Steelers fans would be ecstatic if they can get him in the second or third round. Tight end. Are they looking at Washington and Freiermuth as, all right, those are our top 2 guys, we're happy with it, and if we bring another guy in, it's only to kind of back those guys up? Or are they still looking for a true number 1 guy that can be a difference maker? Not that there are many in the draft class this year. You only have basically 1, and I don't anticipate the Steelers going down that road in round 1, but what's the feeling with the tight ends?
Yeah, I think they're happy with the top 2. Again, they're not going to be as heavy 12 personnel. McCarthy's run some 12 personnel at about a 25-30% clip, but not the 50% or so rate that Arthur Smith likes to do it. So you have Washington and Freiermuth. Freiermuth's looking for a bounce back here despite Arthur Smith's affinity for tight ends. Freiermuth really was kind of shut out and frozen out of last year, and still kind of hard to understand exactly why. And Washington was really valued as an inline blocker. How well is he going to work in the McCarthy system? I'm not quite sure if he'll be as useful to McCarthy as he was under Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith last year. But those are going to be your top 2. I don't think you're going to bring in some sort of major move to knock those guys off. You'll add depth, though. Johnny Smith, he may try to go back to Ohio State with Arthur Smith because those 2 have been around for a long time together. And then Hayward, your free agent. So they'll add probably some depth there at tight end, but Washington and Freiermuth will be your top 2 guys.
And if they re-sign Gainwell, which I think is likely with the amount of money they can spend, are they set at running back?
Again, it's a little bit nebulous because how are they going to feel about Caleb Johnson with a young guy who had a tough rookie year, can cut both ways? There's a positive of clean slate, new coaching staff. That's always good, but the coaching staff's not attached to you. They didn't scout you. They didn't draft you. Arthur Smith really wanted Caleb Johnson because he thought he would fit the outside zone system that Arthur Smith likes to run. So how will they feel about Johnson, even though he's a third-round pick from last year? That doesn't mean a whole lot to Mike McCarthy or offensive coordinator Brian Angelico. So I think generally they'll be set. Well, again, they're not going to make a major move. They're not going to go sign somebody big money in for agency. They're not going to use a day 1 or day 2 pick on a running back. But when you have 12 picks, do you add some depth? Do you draft a running back in the 5th, 6th round, something like that? There's a good chance of that, to continue to add competition and see what options McCarthy will have whenever he whittles this roster down in August.
We did our mock draft, our first one, a couple of weeks ago. We'll have another one after the combine. Dave Syvertson and John Cooper, and there was the top scouts over at Ourlads. And Denzel Boston wound up the pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Does this, I'm assuming based on what you said with the wide receiver situation, that this would make a lot of sense?
Yeah, certainly from a positional standpoint, receiver in the first round is going to be a very popular choice to Pittsburgh this year. And there's a couple names to consider. And Boston's a big body type of a guy that's a real kind of alpha, go up and get the football, really good hands, really good downfield. And so there could be, it could be tough to stop DK Metcalf and Denzel Boston. I think, though, what I would like from Pittsburgh, at least, I don't know if the team will feel the same way, but hopefully they do. You need a route runner. You need somebody who can beat man-to-man coverage. Look at the Houston game last year, facing those top quarterbacks. No one could really shake free. Even when he lost Metcalf to suspension, there was nobody who could shake free from the coverage. Denzel Ward and Tyson Campbell in that Week 17 loss to Cleveland. So you need somebody who can win the route one-on-one. Pittsburgh does not have that guy. They really have not had that guy since Deontay Johnson, and then really before him, Antonio Brown. So I don't know if Boston really scratches that itch as a true route runner. He's kind of more that big body, go up and get the football, combat catch kind of a guy. There's value in that, but I think I'd be looking for somebody more that route runner. I really like Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana. I don't know if he's going to be a first round guy. He's kind of in that early second round, late first round range right now, but he's a guy that's a great route runner, gets open. Also was coached by Pittsburgh's new receivers coach, Adam Henry. He was with him in Indiana for his freshman season, so he's playing the connection game there. And I talked to someone who coached with Adam Henry, who talked about all the development that Henry did behind the scenes with Cooper, who was a freshman, barely played that year, but really manifested itself throughout Cooper's career. So I really like Cooper. I think he's a strong fit for Pittsburgh. We'll see if he's the pick or not. But yeah, receiver, big picture, first round, makes a lot of sense there, Greg.
All right, and there you go. Just taking a quick look here. That's pretty much around some of the other players that were drafted right around the Steelers. There we had Simpson at number 16 to my Jets, which I do not want myself. I'll be okay with it. I'll accept it. I'll trust my general manager, who I like. But I'm not a big fan of Ty Simpson in the first round myself. I think I think I'd just rather go with the Nussmeier guys, pick another player early and then get your quarterback later. It's just the way that I feel. I don't know how you feel about Simpson, but I'm just not enamored with him as a clear-cut number 2 quarterback of this draft class.
Yeah, I get that. My frustration, bigger picture, is just it seems like every year Pittsburgh needs a quarterback. They face one of the worst and weakest quarterback classes of the last 20 years. In 2022, one of the worst classes. They try on Kenny Pickett, and it doesn't work out. You needed one last year. Really more names there. Maybe they should have gotten Jackson Dart, but I understand them passing. They really wanted to bolster the defensive line. And then this year, you're again looking at a weak class. So just in those years where Pittsburgh has really needed a quarterback and had that avenue for it, it just hasn't materialized. And so you can't force the pick. They tried that with Pickett and it burned them, obviously. So maybe 2027, if that class ends up being what we think and hope it'll be.
Alex, excellent job as always. I really appreciate you getting me up to speed on what's going on with the Steelers. When is your latest? Of course, you've got the content, and we have the link in the description of this video that you could check out. When's your latest podcast?
We do the Terrible Podcast with myself and Dave Bryan every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So Mondays. We'll record
3 days a week.
Yeah, 3 days a week. We'll have guys out at the NFL Combine next week. And so we'll have them talking to Omar Khan, who will speak, the general manager for the Steelers, also talk to players and see what kind of pick their brain. So certainly staying busy then for agency on the horizon as well, of course.
I appreciate it, Alex. Look forward to talking to you right after the draft. That should give us a great idea of how the Steelers offseason went, unless something dramatic happens. I guess I should just, last question I should ask you is there if the Steelers target a big name free agent, who will it be?
That's a good question. I've been kind of wrapped up in draft stuff because all our timeline got pushed back. Never had to do with a head coach search before, so it just felt all foreign to us of how to deal with that.
True.
So I'm just kind of like trying to literally our site was created and has never covered a coach other than Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh, and we've been around since 2008, and he was of course hired in 2007. So that kind of pushed a timeline back. So I've kind of been a little bit later on my free agency stuff. But one popular name will be Romeo Doubs from Green Bay, the receiver. Not going to be as costly as maybe an Alec Pierce if he hits free agency or somebody like that. If Rodgers comes back, even though it's a short-term thing, obviously played, or there's a connection there, I just should say, but Rodgers and Doubs there, they've had a lot of respect for each other and probably going to come in that $15-20 million range, which Pittsburgh certainly can afford. And I don't know, McCarthy was there. I don't know, McCarthy wasn't there to coach him. I'm getting my timelines mixed up. But point is, certainly some connection, certainly a fit and a need for Pittsburgh. So Doubs is a name to watch.
Love it. Thanks, Alex. Appreciate it. Talk to you after the draft.
Thank you, Greg. Take care.
You got it. Alex Kozora, Steelers Depot. Check it out. Once again, check out the links in the description of the video where you can find Alex's work both on the website and for the podcast that he does 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Later on tonight, our next broadcast here on Proline TV and the Ourlads Football Network will be our interview with Adam Patrick talking about the Minnesota Vikings. So we actually had scheduled this interview quite a long time ago. I think it was actually one of the first interviews that I had scheduled for the offseason. And unfortunately, Adam had to reschedule it, and then we had to reschedule it again. But here we go. We're ready to talk Minnesota Vikings, and that is going to be, like I said, a little bit later on today. Should be at 7 o'clock Eastern time. That's where it's penciled in right now, live here on the network. So once again, Adam Patrick, fan-sided, a Vikings contributor for the VikingAge.com. And a lot to talk about with the Minnesota Vikings. Of course, they've got a quarterback question as well. Seems like almost every team in the NFL does. That's the problem, the dearth of quarterbacks in the NFL. But that's going to wrap it up. Vikings coverage later on. If you were not with us earlier today on the network at Proline TV, we talked a lot of college basketball with the Playbook ATS podcast. So we're going to really start talking tons of basketball now on that show every Thursday at 1 o'clock, all the way through to the Final Four. We'll start talking some NBA, or I know those guys will talk NBA. I'm out of the equation when it comes to the NBA. Not an NBA guy. Haven't been an NBA guy for about 10 years now, something like that. Used to love the NBA, just like every other sport, but no more. So, but that's okay, because the main handicappers that's what the show is about with Mark, Andy, and Jim. The main guys, they are going to talk NBA and college basketball. So I'll have my two cents in with college hoops. Don't forget, tomorrow I'll return for my Friday college basketball segment. Usually we air that between 7 and 9 every Friday. So we got some big games to talk about. We did talk about some big games earlier today. Duke and Michigan was one of them. And Iowa State, BYU, Houston, Arizona were the other two. So there's some really big games, including the Duke-Michigan game, one of the biggest regular season non-conference games in college basketball to come around in February in quite a long time. So, that's going to be a big one. We talked about it. I'll talk about it tomorrow night. Also, update whether or not I'll have some more future teams to talk about regarding championship futures or the Final Four. That's on Friday here at Proline TV. There will be no NASCAR coverage on Saturday because qualifying does not really matter at Atlanta, as I spoke about on Tuesday's NASCAR show. So if you're into NASCAR, check out the show on Tuesday for our coverage and our predictions on the race this Sunday in Atlanta. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up. Again, thanks to Alex Kozora. Once again, I look forward to talking to him right after the draft to see exactly how things went for the Steelers this offseason. And we'll do some more NFL talk, 7 o'clock tonight, Minnesota Vikings.